There comes a peculiar point in the journey of every seeker, a moment that feels like standing at the edge of an ocean that stretches endlessly, shimmering with all the things one has ever longed for. The more you try to grasp it, the more it slips away. You reach out your hands to hold the sea, but the tighter you close your fingers, the less water remains. And then quite suddenly you see, the ocean was never something to reach. You were already in it from the very beginning. The moment you stop searching, you are found. Now, that sounds absurd, doesn't it? Because most of our lives are built upon the idea that we must search, strive, and struggle to find what's missing: God, peace, love, enlightenment, purpose. Meaning, we imagine that life is a kind of cosmic scavenger hunt, with little clues hidden in holy books, meditation retreats, romantic partners, or the next great achievement. And yet, the more desperately we look, the more elusive the treasure becomes. The universe seems to have a sense of humor that way. You see, the problem is not that you haven't looked hard enough, but that you're looking from the wrong place. The search itself, this frantic effort to reach something beyond yourself, is precisely what conceals what you're after. It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror, or to bite your own teeth. The very energy of seeking implies separation, and that illusion of separation is the root of your restlessness. Now consider this: the eye cannot see itself, but through everything it sees, it is seen. Likewise, the self. You are looking for the peace, the stillness. The truth cannot be captured by pursuit, because it is the very consciousness doing the pursuing. It's as if the universe is playing hide and seek with itself, but it is hidden so well that it forgot where it placed the key. And then one day, after exhausting every corner of the cosmos, it stops utterly defeated, and in that stillness, laughter arises. Oh, it says, there was never anything to find. I was here all along. How? That is the cosmic joke, the seeking mind, the spiritual ego, the incessant longing. All of it belongs to the illusion that there is something missing. The truth is, nothing has ever been missing. You are not a stranger in this universe trying to find your way home. You are the home pretending to be a stranger. But notice how difficult it is to truly accept that, because our entire conditioning, our education, religion, society has trained us to chase. We are taught from childhood that fulfillment is always somewhere else, in the next toy, the next grade, the next relationship, the next spiritual awakening. It's always around the next bend. And so we run endlessly, never suspecting that the finish line moves with us. The harder you chase, the faster it retreats, because you are running in circles, and the one you are chasing is yourself. Let's imagine you're sitting quietly, trying to meditate. You say, I will now still my mind. But who is this I that tries to still the mind? It's like trying to smooth out the surface of water with an iron. The more you press, the more ripples appear. The trick, you see, is not to make the water calm, but to let it be. The calmness was never lost. It was only disturbed by the effort to make it calm. And so it is with life. The search for peace is the disturbance of peace. The effort to awaken is the sleep itself. When you realize that something profound happens, the searching relaxes, not because you've given up, but because you've understood the absurdity of the game. You stop asking the universe for answers, and instead you start listening. Have you ever watched the way a cat sits? It doesn't seek to meditate. It doesn't strive to be mindful. It simply is. A perfect expression of awareness without self-consciousness. The cat doesn't say, "I am being present." It just is present. And that, my friends, is what the sages called enlightenment, not a thunderclap of revelation, but the quiet ordinariness of being at ease with what is now. Many people misunderstand this as passivity, as if to stop searching means to stop growing. But it's not about abandoning curiosity or aspiration. It's about dropping the illusion that you are ever apart from the thing you desire. Growth happens naturally, as the tree grows, not because it strains, but because it is what it is. Do you suppose the flower tries to open? Does the moon try to shine? Of course not. They unfold by the very nature of their being. Likewise, the awakening of consciousness is not an achievement, it's a blossoming. And blossoming cannot be forced. It happens when the conditions are right. When you stop trying to make yourself awaken, you allow yourself to awaken. This is why so many spiritual seekers suffer. They have turned the search for enlightenment into the final trap of the ego. The me that wants to become awakened is the very illusion that awakening reveals to be unreal. You cannot awaken as an ego, you can only awaken from it. It's like the moth chasing the flame, unaware that what it seeks will consume it. So let us ask, who is it that seeks? Who is the I that wants to find itself? And suddenly, when you look for it, really look, it disappears. There is only seeing, only awareness, only life as it unfolds in this very moment. Everything else, the seeker, the goal, the path were just ripples on the surface of an infinite sea. And so, to stop searching does not mean to become complacent or lazy. It means to surrender the pretense that you know where to look. It means to stop running toward or away, and instead to stand still, utterly still, and see that you are already what you've been seeking. But the irony, of course, is that you cannot stop searching by trying to stop, because the moment you try to stop, that trying is itself another form of searching. You see how subtle this is? To truly stop searching, there must be no one left to stop. The search ends only when the seeker dissolves, when you recognize that the one doing the seeking was never real to begin with. So, what happens then? What happens when the seeker vanishes, and there is only this: the breath, the hum of life, the sound of the world happening by itself? You find that there is a stillness, vast and uncaused, in which everything appears and disappears. You find that there is no separate you who must do the finding. Life finds itself endlessly through every form, every thought, every heartbeat. You are found not because you reached the goal, but because you never left home. The wind blows, the river flows, and the stars burn, and there is no one controlling them. They are their own perfection, and you are that same perfection, simply unaware of it until the moment the search falls silent. And that silence, not the silence of absence, but of total presence, is the sound of awakening. When the search quiets, there is a peculiar sensation that arises, not triumph, not relief, but something far more mysterious. It's as if the whole universe exhales. And for the first time, you realize you've been holding your breath all your life, for years. You've strained toward the future, toward salvation, success, enlightenment. Love, never noticing that every act of reaching was, in fact, an escape from where you already are. The mind, clever creature that it is, has mastered the art of turning the present moment into a means to an end. It whispers, just a little more effort, and you'll arrive. But, of course, there is no arrival, for the very notion of arrival implies that you are somewhere else now, and so you live as a kind of ghost, chasing a horizon that retreats with every step. But when the search stops, something astonishing happens. The horizon collapses inward. Time loses its grip. The future and the past dissolve into this luminous immediacy. There is no later to strive for, no before to regret. There is only this, the gentle hum of existence unfolding by itself. You realize that life was never a journey towards something, it was always the something itself. Now, that realization does not come as an intellectual conclusion. It comes as a felt revelation, a shift so deep it cannot be described. Only lived. It's like awakening from a long, vivid dream, and realizing that all your struggles, all your victories, were ripples on the surface of your own mind. The ego, that restless, whispering voice that says, I must become, begins to fade. Not through effort, but through exposure. You see it for what it is, a story, a collection of memories, fears, and desires that you've mistaken for a self. And when you see the story, not as truth, but as a movement of thought, it loses its power. You no longer cling to its dramas, because you know they are only waves passing through consciousness. You might say, but if I stop seeking, if I stop trying to become, won't I stagnate? Won't I lose direction? No, my dear friend, you'll discover direction for the first time, because what moves you then is not ambition or anxiety, but the same intelligence that turns the galaxies, that makes the grass grow, that beats your heart without your command. You move because life moves effortlessly, spontaneously, like the dance of wind in the trees. When you act from that stillness, there is no sense of doing. Things are done, but no doer can be found. It's as if life flows through you, using your form, your voice, your hands. To express itself, you become a flute, and the divine breath plays through you. That is what it means to be found. But understand, this cannot be forced. You cannot decide to surrender any more than you can decide to fall asleep. The very decision implies effort, and effort is the dream of control. You fall into surrender the same way you fall into sleep, by ceasing to try. And yet, paradoxically, it is the most awake state there is, because when the dream of control dissolves, what remains is awareness, pure, undivided, ungraspable awareness. Now, the ego doesn't like this idea one bit. It will say, that's all very poetic, but in the real world, I have responsibilities. I must plan, act, achieve. And of course you do. But when you understand that you are not the doer, even those responsibilities become part of the same effortless unfolding. You plan, but without anxiety. You act, but without tension. You work, but without the desperate need for reward. It's the difference between dancing because you love the music and dancing because you're trying to impress the audience. When you love the music, every movement is joy. When you dance for applause, every movement is strain. Life, in truth, is not a performance. It is a dance. And the purpose of a dance is not to reach the end of the floor as quickly as possible, but to enjoy every step. The same is true of existence. We were never meant to arrive. We were meant to move, to flow, to play. You see, the moment you try to make life something other than what it is, you create friction resistance. And that resistance is suffering. The Buddha called it dukkha, but we all feel it without the name, the sense of, this shouldn't be happening. But what if everything that happens should happen because it does? When you drop the idea that life owes you something different, you begin to see that what's unfolding before you is not a mistake, it's the very dance itself. Pain, joy, loss, love, confusion, all of it is part of the same melody. You can't separate the high notes from the low ones without destroying the music. So long as you're searching, you divide life into what you want and what you reject. But when you stop searching, that division collapses, and you see that even your struggles were part of the harmony. The rain falls, the thunder roars, and beneath it, silence remains untouched. That silence, that awareness, is what you truly are. It doesn't need to be improved, awakened, or perfected. It has no beginning, no end, no edges. It's not your consciousness, it's the consciousness, the infinite field, in which everything arises and dissolves, but because we've been trained to identify with thoughts, we think of ourselves as something inside the field, a small, separate spark looking out at the world. Yet the truth is the other way around. The world arises in you, thoughts, sensations, emotions. All of them appear like clouds in the open sky of awareness. And awareness itself is never touched by what passes through it. You might say, but I still feel lost. Hamza, of course you do, because the illusion of being lost is part of being found. It's like the wave believing it has lost the ocean, not realizing that its very nature is oceanic. You are not a person trying to reach awareness. You are awareness pretending to be a person. Once that pretending is seen through, the game changes. The masks fall, the striving ends, and you find yourself laughing at the cosmic hide and seek you've been playing all along. It's a laughter that has no mockery in it, only wonder, because you see that even your searching, your confusion, your so-called failures were the divine play of life exploring itself. Without the search, there could be no discovery. Without the illusion, no awakening. So you might ask, if the searching was itself part of the dance, then why stop? Why not keep going? Because eventually, every dancer grows tired. Every seeker exhausts themselves against the walls of their own mind. And it is in that exhaustion, that sacred giving up, that the door opens. It's not a door you can find. It appears when you stop trying to open it. And on the other side, there is no other side. There is only this, the wind through the trees, the sound of your breath, the faint beating of your heart, life living itself. That is where you are found. Not in the heavens, not in the future, but here in the ordinariness of this moment, which was never ordinary at all. To be found is not to be discovered like a lost coin, shining under the couch. It is to realize you were never lost. Imagine the ocean worrying about where its waves have gone. Each rises, dances, and dissolves, and yet none ever leave the sea. That is what it means to be human. Each thought, each emotion, each chapter of your life is a wave of the same water, expressing itself in countless shapes. You were never apart from the source, only dreaming that you were. But you see, dreams are necessary too. For without the illusion of separation, there could be no reunion, no awakening, no dance of return. The divine forgets itself in order to rediscover itself through you. That's the strange play of it all. The universe hides as you, so it can experience the joy of being found. Now, when you truly stop searching, life doesn't become dull or meaningless. It becomes infinitely intimate. The world no longer stands at a distance. It breathes with you. Every leaf, every breath of wind, every passerby on the street becomes a mirror of the same being. The boundaries that once divided you from life begin to soften, like mist under the morning sun. You look at the clouds and suddenly feel that too is me. You listen to the laughter of children, and it feels as if the cosmos itself is laughing through them. And then an astonishing gentleness begins to unfold. You no longer fight what happens, because you see that resistance was always against yourself. The rain no longer feels like an interruption of the sunshine, nor sorrow, a betrayal of joy. You realize that joy and sorrow are two movements of the same eternal rhythm, like inhaling and exhaling. Without one, the other could not exist. So, when you stop searching for only one side of the wave, only pleasure, only peace, only light, you discover the totality. You realize that to love life is to love its wholeness, the beauty and the terror, the rise and the fall. For you cannot truly love what you do not allow to be as it is. The seeker, you see, is always editing life, saying, I'll take this part, but not that. Humbly, I'll accept calmness, but not chaos. Humbly, I'll embrace success, but not failure. Humbly, and so the seeker suffers, forever splitting the seamless fabric of existence into should and should not. Humbly, but the one who is found makes no such division. They see that the thunder and the silence are one event, that the flower blooming and the flower withering are the same gesture of life. To awaken is not to escape the storm, it is to realize that you are the storm. And that realization brings peace, not because the storm ends, but because the struggle against it does. Do you recall, perhaps, at a moment in your life when everything stopped, not in the dramatic sense of an event, but in a quiet, wordless stillness? Maybe you were watching the sun set, or hearing the rain against your window. For a split second, there was no you trying to understand, no narrative, no seeking, only presence. That fleeting silence is what you've been looking for all along. It's what you've always been. It's so simple, in fact, that the mind constantly overlooks it. The mind prefers complexity, stories, methods, practices, rituals. It loves to chase its own tail. But presence doesn't need to be attained. It's what everything is happening in. When you stop trying to grasp it, it reveals itself as the very ground of experience. It is not something you can describe or possess. You cannot say, "Now I have found it." For the moment you do, it becomes another object of thought, another thing to lose. Presence can never be possessed, because you are it. When you rest in that awareness, life ceases to be a problem to solve. It becomes a mystery to participate in. Now, this might sound as though I'm suggesting some kind of detachment, as if to awaken means to drift above the world, serene and untouched. But that's another misunderstanding. True awakening is not escape, it's radical intimacy. You don't float away from life, you fall into it completely. You cry when the world cries. You laugh when the world laughs. You become vulnerable, tender, unguarded. You begin to live not as an observer, but as the living pulse of the moment itself, because to be found is to dissolve into the dance. You no longer stand outside the river, trying to control its current. You are the current, and whether it rushes or stills, it carries you effortlessly, because you and it are not two. The mind once said, "I must let go." But now there's no one left to let go, only the letting go itself. It's a strange sort of freedom. This awakening, not the freedom to have whatever you want, but the freedom from the need to have anything at all. Not the freedom to control life, but the freedom to let life move through you. You discover that you can act fully, love deeply, engage passionately, and yet remain at peace, because you no longer confuse yourself with the passing forms. The actor no longer believes he is the character, and so you can play your role, father, mother, lover, friend, artist, worker, with complete sincerity, without forgetting that it is a play. When the curtain falls, you bow to the audience and return home, unburdened. You see, the tragedy of the human condition is not that life is fleeting, but that we refuse to dance because we fear the ending. We cling, we grasp, we demand permanence in a world that is pure movement. But life is a melody precisely because it ends. Without silence, there is no music. And when you stop searching for eternity, you begin to truly live in time, each moment shining with its own eternity. Perhaps that is what it means to be found, to be reclaimed by the very flow you tried to escape. To realize that every step, every stumble, every tear, it was part of the way, even when you thought you were lost. In the grand play of existence, nothing is wasted. Even your searching was divine. The moment of surrender does not erase the past, it redeems it. It turns every mistake into a brushstroke of the larger masterpiece. And then you see that the universe never judged you for searching. It was smiling all along, whispering, "Look deeper. Keep playing. You'll find it when you stop trying to find it." That's the paradox and the mercy of awakening. When the seeker disappears, What remains is not an empty void, but fullness overflowing, shimmering, alive. It is not you who finds peace. Peace finds itself through you. It's not you who reaches enlightenment. Enlightenment awakens as you, and in that awakening, there is no longer you or it, only this. The sound of rain, the beating of your heart, the rising and falling of breath, everything just as it is, perfect, complete. Found, there is a quiet moment, perhaps the quietest of all, when you finally realize that you no longer need to understand, not because you've grown indifferent, but because understanding itself has dissolved into wonder. It's like watching the tide come in at dusk. You no longer ask where it comes from or where it goes. You no longer measure the meaning of each wave. You simply stand there breathing with it, feeling its coolness against your feet, and that is enough. When the search has truly ended, life becomes astonishingly simple. Not simple in the sense of shallow, but in the sense of clear, transparent, like still water reflecting the stars. You begin to see that everything you once resisted, fear, pain, uncertainty, were not enemies at all, but gateways, each one leading you deeper into the heart of life itself. You see that death is not the opposite of life, but its secret companion. It walks with you at every step, reminding you to be alive now. For what gives the flower its beauty is not its permanence, but its transience. The petals are beautiful because they will fall. The sunset is beautiful because it will fade. To love is to know that what you love will pass, and to love it anyway. The one who has stopped searching does not become detached from the world, but falls hopelessly in love with it. Every fleeting thing becomes precious beyond measure. The laughter of a stranger, the creak of a wooden floor, the light spilling through an old window, all become holy. You no longer live as if life owes you something. You live as gratitude itself. Even pain, when it comes, is not met with resistance, but with tenderness. You say, "Ah, here you are again," as you would to an old friend. For you know that pain, too, is an expression of aliveness, a wave in the same sea. And as you embrace it all, something extraordinary happens. The world begins to glow from within, not because it has changed, but because you have stopped demanding that it be different. This unfiltered immediacy is what all the mystics meant by heaven. It is not a place elsewhere. It is the direct experience of being awake to what is heaven and hell were never places. They were states of perception. When you resist the flow, you burn in the fire of separation. When you surrender, you bathe in the light of unity. The same world, seen through different eyes, but let's not pretend that the mind will give up its games so easily. It will return, whispering, "Yes, yes, but how do I stay awakened?" And there you see the trick again. The I that wants to stay awakened is the same dream that once wanted to awaken. Awakening has no permanence, because it is not a state. It is the recognition that all states come and go. The recognition itself never moves. So don't try to hold it. Don't try to preserve the feeling. Let the moment live and die freely, as all moments must. Each time you forget, you will search again. And each time you search, you will rediscover that there was nothing to find. This cycle, too, is part of the dance. Even the forgetting is divine. For what could be more playful than the infinite pretending to lose itself, only to rediscover its own face again and again? The universe, after all, is not serious. It is profoundly sincere, but not serious. Look around you. Birds, trees, clouds. The whole thing is a celebration, a cosmic improvisation. It's only the human mind that insists on taking it as a problem to be solved. When you stop searching, life stops being a question and becomes an answer. Not an answer you can write in a book, but an answer that breathes, sings, and moves. Every sound, every silence, every heartbeat says the same thing. This, and in that rhythm, you are no longer apart. You are the heartbeat itself. I sometimes imagine the moment of death not as an ending, but as the final exhalation of this cosmic breath. The form dissolves, the wave sinks back into the sea, and all the searching ends in the vast ease of being itself. What a relief that will be to stop pretending to be separate. But the beauty is, you don't have to wait until death. You can die before you die. You can let the false self dissolve right here, right now. When the I dies, life begins, and that death is not tragedy, it is liberation. Because what dies is only the dream, the phantom that thought it was in control. What remains is what has always been, the simple miracle of awareness, aware of itself. So, the moment you stop searching, you are found, but that you who is found is not the one who began the search. The one who searched disappears into the finding like salt dissolving in the sea. And what remains is the sea itself, vast, clear, silent, alive. In that stillness, everything dances, the galaxies swirl, the rivers flow, the laughter echoes, and you are all of it. Not observing the dance, but being the dance, not loving the world, but being love itself, not finding the truth, but being truth unfolding moment by moment. So, rest now. You've been searching long enough. Sit quietly for a moment. Feel your breath. Notice that it breathes itself. Notice that your heart beats itself. Notice that life lives itself. There is no need to manage it. No need to arrive anywhere. You are home. You were always home. And if someday the search begins again, as it will, because the play must go on, smile gently. Let it. For even the searching is part of the finding. Even the longing is the beloved in disguise. And even when you forget, the truth remains. You are what you've been looking for. You are what has never been lost. You are and have always been found